You've been taught to mock what hurts you before it can break you, to raise an eyebrow instead of a fist, to laugh coldly at life's cruelty instead of confronting the wound it left behind. And the world will tell you that's strength, that sarcasm is armor, that skepticism is maturity, that detachment is wisdom. But that's a lie. Cynicism isn't power. It's surrender in disguise. It's the performance of control when, in reality, you've already given up. You don't trust people, not because they're unworthy, but because trusting would make you vulnerable again. You mock love, meaning, and idealism, not because you've outgrown them, but because you've been burned by them. You say nothing matters, but you're haunted by the fact that everything still does. This is the brutal truth. Cynicism is easier than healing, not because it's smarter, but because it demands less. It requires no courage, no patience, no self-confrontation. All it needs is your refusal to feel deeply again. And our culture rewards that refusal. It celebrates irony over sincerity. It platforms influencers who teach you to not care before they even know what they stand for. It praises detachment as a form of resilience, when, more often, it's just numbed-out avoidance. But Friedrich Nietzsche didn't see cynicism as strength. He saw it as rot, as a spiritual sickness masquerading as intellect. He warned us that behind every sneer is often a broken idealist, too afraid to try again. In his view, true strength isn't found in bitterness. It's found in the raw, bloody process of becoming whole again, despite what shattered you. So if you're here expecting comfort, leave now. This isn't for the casually curious. This is for those who are ready to burn through the illusion, who are done pretending their coldness is wisdom, their sarcasm is insight, their detachment is evolution. This is a confrontation, not a pep talk, because healing, real, soul-wrenching healing, requires more brutality than any sneer. It demands that you return to the battlefield you fled, that you look into the wreckage of your past without flinching, that you stop hiding behind the mask of "I don't care" and start asking, "What if I still do?" Cynicism asks nothing of you, but healing asks everything. So prepare to tear away the layers, to confront the cowardice behind your cleverness, to understand why Nietzsche saw the cynic not as a philosopher but as a man in retreat. If you're ready to face that, then keep going, but only if you're done playing dead. Healing is a battlefield, not a spa, not a journal, not a quiet walk in the forest, a battlefield. And most people don't even make it past the gates. That's why cynicism spreads like wildfire, not because it's true, but because it's safe, because it lets you appear sharp without ever having to bleed. But Nietzsche saw through that illusion. He didn't believe in the comfort of emotional anesthesia. He believed in the fire of transformation, the pain that refines, the wound that teaches, the breakdown that births the Übermensch. To Nietzsche, the cynic is not a hero. He's a deserter, someone who saw the horror of life, recoiled, and never came back. He weaponized his pain into detachment and called it insight. But Nietzsche asks, what if that detachment is not strength but the refusal to grow? Let's be brutally clear. There is no honor in staying wounded just because it hurts too much to heal. Cynicism is often framed as wisdom because it points out the failures of the world, its hypocrisy, its contradictions, its cheap illusions. And yes, there is a kind of dark intelligence in that. But intelligence without courage is rot, and that's where Nietzsche draws the line. A man who sees the world's flaws and collapses into bitterness is not a philosopher. He's a spectator, a wounded animal in the stands jeering at the players on the field. But the man who sees those same flaws and still chooses to act, to build, to believe, that's the kind of strength Nietzsche revered. The man who returns to the flames not to be consumed, but to be reforged. This is where the metaphor deepens. Healing is war, a civil war between the parts of you that want to rise and the parts of you that would rather stay broken and safe. And the enemy isn't just your trauma, your past, your losses. The enemy is your cleverness, your sarcasm, your polished, intellectualized self-defense mechanisms. Every time you say, "I already knew that, I don't care," what's the point? You're waving the white flag. You're not winning, you're avoiding. Nietzsche spoke of resentment, the corrosive emotional state that festers when one feels powerless, but disguises it as moral superiority. This is the engine behind much of modern cynicism. You say love is foolish, not because you've transcended it, but because you were denied it. You claim ambition is meaningless, not because you've seen through the illusion, but because you failed and never tried again. You tear down because you're too afraid to build. But Nietzsche's Übermensch, the higher man, is not the one who hides behind critique. He is the one who creates new values, who gives meaning despite absurdity, who reclaims the will to power not over others, but over himself. And that path is brutal. It means walking back into the pain with eyes open. It means turning your sarcasm inward and asking, what part of me is still bleeding? It means realizing that your detachment is not enlightenment. It's a tourniquet, slowly killing your capacity to feel. You've mistaken numbness for growth. You've called your scar your skin. And Nietzsche would call that a betrayal of the self. To heal, according to Nietzsche, is not to return to some innocent state. It's not about purity, nor about repairing yourself back into who you were before the pain. That person is gone. Healing is not restoration, it's rebirth, and rebirth is violent. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche describes the three transformations of the spirit: the camel, the lion, and the child. The camel carries burdens, traditions, duties, shame. The lion rebels against all of it, destroying what has been imposed. But the final transformation is the child, not a return to naivety, but the ultimate symbol of creation, of saying yes to life on your own terms. Now consider where the cynic gets stuck. He becomes the lion and never moves beyond it. He tears down everything: morality, love, faith, trust. But he never builds anything back. He stays in rebellion forever, mistaking destruction for identity. And Nietzsche warns us, if all you can do is say no, you will rot from the inside out. You will become a ghost who haunts meaning, but never inhabits it. And that's what most modern cynics are. Not thinkers, but ghosts. Drifting through life, proud of how much they can dismantle, terrified of creating anything that might expose them. Because to create something, a belief, a dream, a relationship, is to become vulnerable again, to risk being shattered. To heal is to enter that risk willingly. The real tragedy is this: cynicism feels strong because it protects you from further disappointment. But that protection is a coffin. You can't grow if you won't grieve. You can't lead if you won't believe. And you sure as hell can't love if your entire philosophy is built on proving why love doesn't work. Nietzsche's brutal brilliance was in this: he never offered comfort. He offered confrontation. His idea of amor fati, the love of fate, is not passive acceptance. It's the decision to say yes even to your scars, to affirm life with all its cruelty, to embrace pain not as an enemy, but as a sculptor of the soul. That is healing, not the elimination of pain, but the embrace of its meaning. And cynicism has no answer to that. It can only scoff, roll its eyes, and retreat behind clever words. But healing demands presence. It demands re-entry into your own life. Nietzsche called for the individual to become the creator of their own values, not a collector of critiques. He wanted you to become your own philosopher, your own artist of existence, not a reactionary spectator quoting memes of despair. Ask yourself, who are you becoming through your cynicism? You're not building a worldview, you're reinforcing a wound. You're not gaining wisdom, you're freezing in place. You're stuck in the middle of Nietzsche's transformation, all roar, no rebirth. And here's the deepest cut. Your cynicism may impress your peers. It may win you followers, applause, even intellectual status. But it will not bring you peace. Because peace, real peace, comes after the war inside is fought, not before. It comes after the breakdown, the tears, the rage, the shame, the grief. Peace is not what you start with. It's what you earn. And you can't earn it from a distance. 1. How the problem manifests in daily life, and why it's so easy to miss cynicism doesn't announce itself. It doesn't scream, "I've given up." It seeps into your habits, your voice, your posture. It shows up in small, unremarkable moments. The way you scroll past hopeful content with a smirk. The way you cut people off mid-sentence because you already know how this ends. The way you expect betrayal before you even ask for help. You think you're protecting yourself, but all you're doing is reinforcing the prison you've mistaken for insight. You say it's just realism, but realism doesn't make you bitter. It makes you prepared. What you're practicing is not realism. It's preemptive rejection. You reject joy before it can reject you. You dismiss optimism because it exposes how hungry you are for something to believe in. You pretend you're above it all, but you're not. You're under it, buried in layers of unprocessed grief you never admitted to carrying. The modern world rewards this behavior. Social media thrives on sarcasm, irony, snark. Vulnerability is punished with mockery. Sincerity is labeled cringe. So you adapt. You become fluent in detachment. You use self-deprecating humor as a shield, cutting yourself before anyone else can. You convince yourself that numb is smart and raw is weak. You don't cry. You make a joke. You don't try again. You make a list of why it never worked. You don't open up. You talk in circles, like a hostage of your own wit. That's how it starts. That's how the rot spreads. Until one day, you're not even sure if you believe in anything anymore, or if you just enjoy the comfort of disbelief. And that's the danger. Cynicism doesn't destroy you loudly, it starves you slowly. 2. Why conventional approaches to healing fail and what they refuse to admit. Most approaches to healing today are engineered to be palatable, marketable, and safe. They tell you to meditate, journal, breathe deeply, repeat affirmations, all without ever demanding that you face the wreckage underneath. They soothe symptoms but never confront the system, and cynicism thrives in that gap. You can't treat spiritual starvation with scented candles. You can't break existential despair with a 5-step guide to self-love. The truth is, these conventional methods often fail because they're built on avoidance disguised as care. They want you calm, not powerful, regulated, not reborn. They don't want to provoke you. They want to pacify you. But Nietzsche didn't believe in comfort as medicine. He believed in crisis, because only crisis shatters the illusions that hold you hostage. Healing requires confrontation. It requires pain that isn't just acknowledged, but explored, picked apart, dug up and named. But that's messy. That's dangerous to package. So instead, modern healing culture dilutes the journey into something you can post on Instagram. It replaces transformation with performance. And here's the real danger. Cynicism feeds on that failure. Every time a healing method proves hollow, the cynic feels vindicated. Every failed attempt becomes further evidence that nothing works, that it's all fake, that hope is for the naive. But what if the method failed not because healing is a lie, but because the method lied to you about what healing really requires? You don't need more comfort. You need confrontation with yourself. Not another safe space, but a space where your shadows can't hide. You don't need a better mood. You need a better philosophy. And that philosophy starts where most therapy sessions end, when you stop talking and finally start choosing. 3. How to build a brutal healing mindset. Step by step. You don't heal by waiting to feel ready. You heal by declaring war on the part of you that wants to stay numb. And that war begins with a single rule. No more hiding. No more hiding behind sarcasm, behind detachment, behind excuses masked as insights. Here's how the battle plan looks. Brutal, clear, and non-negotiable. Step 1. Call it out. Start naming your cynicism when it appears. Don't let it masquerade as realism. When you catch yourself mocking love, dismissing hope, or shutting down meaning, say it out loud. This is fear talking. Cynicism thrives in the dark. Expose it. Step 2. Choose vulnerability on purpose. Force yourself into situations where you risk care. Message someone with sincerity, even if you expect nothing back. Admit you need something. Help, rest, truth, even if it makes you shake. Cynicism dies where honesty begins. Step 3. Stop performing. Cynicism is a performance, for others and for yourself. Quit curating your persona to look cool, clever, or unbothered. Every time you pretend not to care, you train yourself to die a little inside. Choose raw over polished. Choose awkward over hollow. Step 4. Read dangerous things. Consume thinkers who don't flatter your detachment. Nietzsche, Kierkegaard, Jung. Read those who confront you, who demand transformation. Let their words break you open. Healing begins when you stop asking for reassurance and start asking for reality. Step 5. Build a daily act of defiance. Each day, do something that affirms life instead of mocking it, even if it's small. A walk without headphones, a prayer without proof, a decision that says, I will care, even if it breaks me again. That's the only way through, not around, through. 4. The war between cynicism and the forces that shape you. Virtù versus Fortuna. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote of two forces, virtù and fortuna. Virtù is willpower, courage, strategic brilliance, the inner force that shapes destiny. Fortuna is chaos, luck, external circumstance, the storm no one controls. Most people, when battered by fortuna, collapse into despair or cynicism. But Machiavelli argued that true power comes from the one who dares to confront the storm and act anyway. Cynicism is what happens when you let fortuna win. When life hits you with betrayal, injustice, randomness, you either rise through virtù or retreat into bitter observation. Cynicism is not just a mindset, it's surrender to chance. It's what the world wants from you. Stay small, stay clever, stay in your corner, analyzing everything and doing nothing. But Nietzsche, like Machiavelli, understood that those who shape history do not mock it from the sidelines. They bleed into it. Virtù is the raw decision to affirm life even when life spits in your face. It's the refusal to become a ghost of your potential just because fate dealt you a cruel hand. Think of your own life. How many moments did you let fortuna define you? A heartbreak turned you into a cynic. A failure made you realistic. A betrayal taught you never to believe again. You surrendered your virtù for the illusion of protection. But healing begins when you reclaim that force. When you say, I will not let randomness shape my soul. I will not become hollow just because the world is unfair. That is virtù. And that is the beginning of healing. Not when the storm ends, but when you rise in the middle of it, sword drawn, and walk forward anyway. 5. Advanced strategies to win the inner and outer war. Once you've recognized the enemy, your own cynicism, and stepped onto the battlefield, the fight doesn't end. It deepens. Healing isn't a single battle. It's a prolonged campaign, with ambushes, traps, betrayals, and exhaustion. And to win it, you need more than motivation. You need strategy. Here are the 5 weapons. Weapon 1. Ritual over emotion. Stop waiting to feel like healing. Build rituals that happen no matter your mood. Wake up, journal the raw truth. Meditate not for peace, but for clarity. Move your body daily, not to get fit, but to prove you still command it. Ritual bypasses emotional sabotage. It turns your body into a soldier of your intent. Weapon 2. Control your information diet. Cynicism multiplies in echo chambers. Unfollow those who celebrate apathy. Avoid content that mocks vulnerability. Flood your mind with thinkers who challenge you to rise, not those who make numbness look cool. Your inputs shape your inner war. Weapon 3. Choose a philosophy, not a trend. Don't chase momentary inspiration. Choose a worldview that demands discipline. Stoicism, Nietzschean realism, Jungian integration. Let your life be governed by principles, not feelings. Cynicism is reactive. Philosophy is sovereign. Weapon 4. Cultivate one brutal ally. Find someone who refuses to let you lie to yourself. Someone who sees through your irony. Who interrupts your spirals with, what are you really afraid of? Healing is not a solo war. Choose allies who sharpen you, not ones who enable your decay. Weapon 5. Expect regression and fight anyway. You will fall back into old habits. You will relapse into bitterness. The strategy is not to avoid failure. It's to be ruthless in recovery. The true warrior isn't flawless. He's relentless. That's how you win. Not cleanly, but completely. So now you know. You've been using cynicism to avoid the pain of caring. You've worn it like armor, mistaking sarcasm for strength and detachment for insight. But the truth is simple and brutal. Cynicism is easier than healing because it costs nothing. Healing costs everything. Cynicism lets you stay clever without confronting your wounds. Healing demands you rip off the mask and face what broke you. Cynicism keeps you comfortable. Healing makes you dangerous, because once you've healed, no one can control you through fear, shame, or failure ever again. Nietzsche didn't write for the weak. He wrote for those on the edge, the ones who've seen the void, felt its pull, and still choose to create meaning anyway. He didn't care if you were hurt. He cared if you used that hurt to forge something new. That is your task now. So here's the challenge. No more passivity. No more clever one-liners. No more hiding behind skepticism. Right now, write a declaration of war. In the comments, in your journal, in your soul. Right? I am not a ghost. Say it like you mean it, like it's your first breath after years underwater. Because healing begins the moment you stop spectating your own life. When you stop acting like a casualty and start acting like a commander. When you realize the war wasn't against the world, it was always against your refusal to feel. You are not broken. You are not cynical by nature. You were just tired of bleeding. But now you know where the battlefield is. And now it's time to return. Sword drawn, eyes open. No more retreat.